If you've been watching me for a while, you know exactly where I am. But if you're new to the channel, I have moved to Toronto. I absolutely love living in the city. And when I was planning on moving, I knew that managing my finances would be a little tricky compared to Waterloo, and I would have to be a little creative with it. So throughout this video, I'll share some tips as I've managed to save hundreds of dollars per month just by being a little creative with my money. In this video, I will be breaking down my spending into 3 main categories and talk about how I've been managing it. The goal of this video, similar to my other videos, is to talk about the logic, in this case, about money, how I think about and how I manage my money as somebody with a background in finance and an accountant father. So let's get into it. The first category is living, and I will break that down into rent and utilities, transportation, and food. Rent has gone up significantly and it is my biggest expense. I live in a high-end area in downtown Toronto, and my reasoning was wanting to be in the core of the city after spending so many years in Waterloo. All my friends live close by, but also safety. Toronto has not been as safe as it used to be in the last few years, and I really wanted to prioritize that. I have lived in Toronto before. All my co-ops were in Toronto, so combined I spent about 2 years, and it has changed quite a bit. And I didn't really remember the city as I used to. And so I figured that I would live in this area where the rent is a little bit high, sure, but it would only be for a year because my building is not rent controlled. And in this year, I would just go around, figure out which area I wanted to move to after, and then I would just move there after my lease is over. I also got a couple months free as part of a promotion that was going on. So while my net rent is $2,300, the amount on my lease is $2,600 per month. Living in the area that I'm in does have its benefits, which is the next category, transportation. My costs on transportation have cut down significantly since I moved to the city. The area that I live in has a walk score of 98, which is really high. So you can basically just walk everywhere. And when I was planning to move to the city and when I was budgeting, I thought about transportation and my car a lot. I have a paid off car, and it's only because I didn't really want to pay high interest on a depreciating asset. But anyways, I made arrangements to give my car to a family member for a year. And I mainly did that because when I was talking to people at work and my friends before I moved, none of them said they needed a car. In fact, one of my friends, she rented a car for 2 weeks, and it was the most annoying thing for her for the 2 weeks because of traffic and parking. Also, the area that I wanted to live in, especially my condo, does not have free parking. And so parking and insurance alone would have cost me $500 a month, and then fuel and maintenance on top of that. So it really didn't make any sense. And now my transportation costs are about $15 to $20 a month, which is pretty great. So that's transportation. The next category is food. The first few months of moving to downtown, I was spending a lot of money on food. The bills were just racking up because every single meal I was eating outside. I didn't buy any pots and pans. The ones that I had before, I had to throw them out because they were really, really old. And so I was just buying food every single day. And it wasn't good for my health or for my credit card. And I'm going to cheat a little bit and combine this with the others category because in my opinion, food is obviously a necessity, but it's also part of a social activity, right? So you can combine both together. Every month when I was budgeting and I was looking at the amount that I spent on food, it wasn't making me anxious, but I realized that I wasn't enjoying the food that I was eating outside. My health was deteriorating as a result of that. And so I wasn't really getting any benefit from it. So I made a rule for myself. Starting last month, I decided I would run an experiment where I would cut down sugar, but also I would only eat outside if I was eating with somebody, dining in. So no Uber Eats, no taking out food. I would only buy groceries, but I would not say no whenever there was a social activity. So anytime somebody asked if I wanted to go out for food, I was down for that. I realized that I really started to enjoy eating outside because I had a balance with it. And when I did my budgeting for the month of June and last month, July, I can't believe we're already in August. But when I did my budgeting, I realized that I saved about $200 in each of the months because I was not eating out every single day. Not only did this rule help me save $200 a month, but also I started feeling better about myself. I slept better, I had more energy, and so it was a win-win throughout. The next category is others' wants. So basically anything that is not a necessity, but you want to do it. For example, going out with friends, eating out, watching a movie, buying stuff for your apartment, going to exercise classes, stuff like that. Stuff that you need to make life a little bit interesting, but it's not a necessity. So I wanted to decorate my apartment and I wanted to buy some art and some plants, but things were so expensive, and I also knew that I wanted to move after a year, and my friend gave me a really good tip in this category. And actually, why don't we just hear from her?
Things that we own or want to buy or want to put in our space doesn't necessarily have to be expensive.
Yeah.
We can DIY most things in this day and age. We've got so much accessibility and inspiration from social media. So one example of what I like to do myself instead of spending money on is art. So when I want to add a pop of color or generally a pop of art to a space, whether it's my room or the living room or behind the couch, not behind the wall.
Not behind the wall. We would keep saying behind the wall.
I would look at inspiration, and sometimes I'm out in stores and trying to find a piece that I really like. But when I look at the price tag, I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend $100 and upwards on something that I can create myself. And some pieces obviously have emotional value attached to it, or if it truly is an artist's work, I definitely do understand the worth of that. But if you're on a low budget and you're just trying to get through making your apartment look nice, I always recommend DIYing your artwork. And of course, everyone has different opinions about that, and different skill sets are required. But you'd be surprised at how you can turn it into not just a DIY artwork that you're doing yourself, which is great form of therapy as well. But you can always get together with your friends, make an art, paint night out of it.
Yeah. One piece of art, I think, on sale costs $60, $70.
Yeah, I think
especially
anywhere
this
between
size.
like $50 and up, that is a discounted or marked down price.
Exactly.
But usually it would be more so towards the
100 or
above
or more. And then this, we got canvases from, canvases is the plural of canvas, right? We got it from Canva.
It could be, I don't know. Maybe Canva is the plural.
We got
of
it
canvas.
for $16, and Amna is nice enough to let me use her paint. But this is like, you've used it so many times, right?
So this is like actually mine and someone who's my roommate's collective.
She was also here on the podcast. Check that out. I'll link it.
Okay. We co-own these paints. So it's like whatever we've collected over time.
So that is one trick. Like whenever you're living in the city or anywhere and you're on a low budget and you want to spend that money, especially when you're saving towards a goal, like if you want to get your first 10K, something like that, then small things add up. So I think this was a great idea.
Yeah, I definitely
And you're going to do something with your friends?
You can make a night out of it. You make a whole day out of it. It's just multi-purpose at this point.
Some things in the wants other categories can be a little tricky, and it depends on how the person thinks about it. For me personally, even when I was unemployed, I didn't stop paying for my gym. I know that a lot of people say that you can work out at home, but I know that I won't work out at home. And it's also so cold at times during the winter in Canada that there's no way that you would want to go for a walk or a run. At least I know I'm not motivated to. So be a little creative with the others category. You don't want to overspend because it does create some anxiety around money, especially if you don't budget. The next category is savings and investments. I contribute to an RRSP and RPP directly from work. I think it's similar to a 401k in the US. And how that works is I contribute a small percentage of my salary to my pension plan, and my company matches that amount. And the total that adds up for where I work is about 15%. So 15% of my income goes towards retirement, and then I get bi-weekly paychecks. So every time I get my paycheck, I contribute a very small percentage towards TFSA, about 5% bi-weekly. And then within my TFSA, I have two different accounts. One is just gathering interest, so that would be more like an emergency fund. And the second I buy stocks from. And then after my fixed expenses and monthly expenses are all done, because I have a very good idea of how much I spend, obviously that amount varies month to month. Anything that is remaining at the end of the month, I put that towards more riskier investments like crypto. This is how I design my finances generally. And I also like experimenting things every now and then. Personal finance is a true passion of mine, especially because I was introduced to it at a very young age. My dad, like I mentioned at the start of the video, is an accountant, and he was always very open about talking about money, telling me the difference between debit and credit cards, talking about insurance, talking about interest, dividend paying stocks, stuff like that. So that was a very common conversation in my household. So I grew up in that environment, and I love talking about finance. I think that the topic about money should not be a taboo. People should more openly talk about it because it's such an important factor in our lives. And I would love to hear how you guys manage your finances and what you thought about this video. So don't forget to give it a like if you enjoyed any part of it, and also subscribe to the channel so you can see me again. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye.